Hi guys, I have a little bit of a cold, so please excuse that. It's not the China plague, whatever. So, once upon a time, not that long ago, Parliament voted for as soon as possible remove the requirement for a special permit for owning suppressors. And this was voted through Parliament. This was a proposition made by the Justice Committee, who basically smashed together a bunch of motions from Parliament and made Parliament vote on that to remove any kind of special permit for suppressors. So what happened with that? They've done a lot of these things. There's a bunch of fun stuff listed there where Parliament voted for this, and our dear government has now today, or at least 28th of October, it's the 2nd of November today, anyway, it dropped today. They made a proposition for government, like a live proposition. So the way it works is Parliament votes this shit that I just showed you, this, and sends it to the government to make a law out of it, and then bounce it back to Parliament to vote for, and then it becomes law at date X. This date for this is supposedly 1st of July 2022, so next summer. So what is this law regarding suppressors? Let's have a look. Suggestion for Parliament decision that you enact these changes to a bunch of laws, basically. So on the left hand side is the way the law looks today, on the right hand side is suggested new law. So first chapter, first verse, or whatever that's called in English, I forgot, balk in Swedish. Anyway, so the way the law used to work is that suppressors were equal to firearms. Ammunition wasn't. Ammunition had a special legislation. And the reason this is going to be long is because they want suppressors to be treated as ammunition. So they had to add suppressors to all the rows where ammunition is. So you can't own ammunition in Sweden unless you have a permit for it. So already here we can see where the government doesn't give a shit about what Parliament has decided, because Parliament has voted for removing any kind of requirement for a license or whatever for suppressors. So they just did not give a shit about what Parliament has decided, which goes against our constitution, but here we are. The current government does not give two shits about the constitution. So the first part is going through what the law actually entails, and it is firearms, ammunition and suppressors in the new wording. Old one is firearms and ammunition. So the way it worked earlier was on the third piece here. They had F, like bolts, suppressors, barrels, etc. is counted as a firearm. You need a license for those. And this is why we needed a license for a suppressor, since a little tube with baffles in it is counted as a firearm. Yeah. So they removed that. That's no longer here. That's good. That's like all they really had to do, remove this word, done. But they have to do a bunch of other shit because they want to make it more awkward. Yeah. So like here, they just add suppressor after ammunition. And this is about government-owned shit. And a bunch of other shit where they just have to add suppressor after ammunition, since it's not present here, because suppressor go under firearm, so they have to add it. So a bunch of that shit. Here's where they put some more wording, this part. The person has a permit or a right to own a certain firearm for shooting purposes, can also without a special permit own a suppressor that fits the firearm. So this wording has a few issues with it. First of all, you have to have a permit to be able to buy a suppressor, and that goes against what Parliament has decided. So that is an issue. So we'll see what Parliament says when this goes up for a vote, if they just roll over. Probably. I don't have great confidence in our current opposition. We have a minority government in Sweden. So the current government is basically counting on our so-called opposition not actually implementing what they've decided and just going with this. Don't get me wrong, this is still much better compared to actually having to apply for a license for a suppressor. So I technically I can just show a license for whatever firearm I own and go buy whatever. Because so anyway, let's continue. This part is a bit awkward. A suppressor that fits the firearm. There isn't a suppressor that is like a certain fit for a certain firearm. We don't even have a definition of what a suppressor is. A suppressor can be a plastic bottle taped to the end of a barrel. It'll be a shitty suppressor for one shot or something. Well, perhaps 2 shots if it's a 22 long rifle, I don't know. So we don't have a definition of it. Yeah, it's stupid. A suppressor that fits the firearm. So if I, for example, right now I own one suppressor that actually do not fit any firearm I own. Well, perhaps I could, so it's a direct attachment to an A2 flash hider. I sold the firearm I used it on previously, but I just keep the suppressor in my safe because I have a separate license for it, so it's no big deal, but I'm planning on selling it to someone who can use it. That would actually be a crime to have that suppressor if this law came into effect, or I would have to put like an A2 flash hider on something, I guess. Then it would technically fit that firearm. It's yeah, I believe this can probably nothing that would ever get prosecuted, I guess, but still it would be a violation of this wording. It's very stupid, especially since when this goes into effect you can just flash your license and buy a suppressor if it goes into effect like this. You could technically get a suppressor and then later configure your firearm for it, but while waiting for the firearm to get configured for it or threaded the barrel or whatever, you would be committing a firearms offense. It's very stupid. They should just remove this part that fits the firearm and avoid a bunch of bullshit. That should just be removed. So a suppressor is just a cylinder usually with some baffles in it or whatever. It's super easy to make one. It's so easy. It's such a ridiculous thing to regulate. And they go through how they're worried about criminals getting their hands on it. Criminals in Sweden have hand grenades, they have belt-fed machine guns, they have submachine guns, they have everything. If they wanted suppressors, they would get suppressors. We have other issues than trying to keep suppressors from the hands of criminals. They want easily concealed firearms, usually like handguns and shit. A suppressor equipped handgun would be much longer. It's just stupid. It's just stupid. Go after the criminals instead of the law-abiding people. So yeah, I see some issues with this, but this is basically the crux of the issue. Yeah. So this goes against Parliament. It's still better than what we have now. I wouldn't cry if this came into effect as it is, but I would see some future issues with this. With this, some rare situations, I guess. But yeah, so this is what happens. I'll put the link to this in. This hasn't been voted through Parliament yet. We'll see. I'll do a follow-up when that happens and probably complain about the opposition just bending over for this bullshit, because they were supposed to quickly remove any requirement for any kind of license for suppressors, and they didn't give a shit. Sweden. and all this is just bunch of good laws about legal gun ownership, and nothing has come to pass. I think we have like 15 different stuff. Like in December, they have a deadline for removing 5-year licensing on machine guns and handguns. This will not happen, but Parliament has set a date. December is the latest you have on removing the requirement for renewal of licensing for this. Yeah, I talked to Sten Bergheden, the chairman of the Justice Committee, and he said that they will do a investigation on this when they don't give a shit, obviously. Of course he knows that they won't do anything. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to get that out there. But anyway, I hope something good comes out of this, so we don't have to apply for a license for a suppressor anymore. Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath, because politics in Sweden, yeah, our political system does not work. Okay, have a nice day.